The negotiations were going swimmingly until it was discovered that this fellow was actually a Pakistani convenience store owner. Now, it's not good enough to rationalize that all Pashtuns with beards look alike. The incident with the Taliban imposter highlights the crucial importance of intelligence collection. Terrorist groups, by their very nature, are secretive and duplicitous. A first-rate intelligence service is needed to help uncover their secrets, identify their members, reveal their organizational structure, and hopefully give the government some confidence that the group is sincere in reaching out to negotiate. Without this knowledge, any government is flying blind. If the Taliban is a hard target to crack, Al-Qaeda has proven more difficult still. A decade after 9/11, bin Laden is still alive, living somewhere, we believe, in western Pakistan. We still do not have very good intelligence on how the group operates at its highest echelons. At that level, it is almost impossible to penetrate with informants or double agents. The greatest value an intelligence service can provide to government officials is to identify a partner for peace among the members of the terrorist group. Now, the phrase partner for peace has been overused and is even misleading. What the government really needs is not just any partner, but someone who can imagine an end to the violence, who has both the moral and physical courage to pursue that path, who has won the respect of his comrades in the movement, and most importantly, who can bring his people with him, whether by persuasion, intimidation, or force. Without such a person, any negotiation is doomed to fail. Whatever Jerry Adams' role in the Troubles, or his long, strange journey to become a man of peace, he is an extraordinary figure today because he led a terrorist group away from the gun and into the corridors of political power. Without his leadership, the conflict in Northern Ireland might still be raging. Is there anyone here who believes that Osama bin Laden is such a partner for peace? Or his deputy, Ayman al-Zawahiri? Or that such a person even exists among Al-Qaeda's leadership? And if this elusive person could somehow be found, if he could somehow exist, do you think that we have the ability to correctly identify him and not sit down with another Pakistani convenience store? Now, please imagine for a moment that we are able to identify a member of Al-Qaeda who is willing to sit across the negotiating table with us. What exactly would we negotiate? Are our differences simply a case of mutual misunderstanding? If so, then clear and candid talk should be able to address our disagreements and find a way to common ground. But we know that our differences with Al-Qaeda are not a case of misunderstanding or miscommunication, but rather a fundamental disagreement over the nature of the international order. Osama bin Laden has been consistent in explaining his version of Muslim grievances and Al-Qaeda's demands. Bin Laden sees the United States and the European powers as oppressors of the Muslim people. He demands that we withdraw our military and political support from the regimes that currently dominate the Arab world. He sees himself as a heroic Muslim leader who wants to unify the Ummah in battle and restore the Muslim world to its former glory. He wants to recreate a pan-Islamic caliphate stretching from Europe to South Asia. These ambitions are revolutionary. They are hardly limited or localized. Recall that the Rand Corporation study concluded that the narrower the goals of a terrorist organization, the more likely it can achieve them without violent action, and the more likely that a government can engage productively with it. It is possible that localized or limited grievances may sometimes be accommodated, but when these grievances are apocalyptic, or millenarian, or maximalist, or revolutionary, then no compromise, no accommodation is possible. Now, if bin Laden were just another unemployed and unemployable Saudi national, his fantasies wouldn't mean very much to us. But he's the leader of a ruthless and deadly terrorist organization that has declared war against the United States, the UK, and the West, against our people, against our interests, and against our values. And his words inspire others to take up violence against us, including perhaps some not sitting very far from where we are this evening. Given these ambitions, which bin Laden has expressed repeatedly over the years, it's difficult to see any basis for negotiation with Al-Qaeda. The gulf is too wide. Our differences are unbridgeable. There is nothing to negotiate unless it is the terms of our own demise. One final point. It's not just that I disagree with Jonathan's position this evening. I believe that his view is actually dangerous. It's dangerous because it carries with it a strain of defeatism. It suggests we don't have the stamina to sustain and win this fight, as painful, as costly, and as long as it might take. Now, I'm not going to get into that whole Americans are from Mars, Europeans are from Venus and Hades. We all know who we are and where we come from. But I will say that Jonathan's lack of confidence in our ability to prevail surprises me for two reasons. One is because we've defeated Al-Qaeda before, in Al-Anbar province, Iraq, in 2006 and 2007. During this time, U.S. and coalition forces were able to persuade some of the Sunni tribes to stop shooting at us, and instead to join forces with us against Al-Qaeda in Iraq and its leader, Abu Musab al-Zarqawi. A number of factors were responsible for our victory. The anger of the Sunni tribes, the casual terror and medieval brutality of Al-Qaeda in Iraq, the leadership of Generals David Petraeus and Raymond Odierno, the surge of U.S. troops, and their courage and bravery in taking the fight to the enemy. But this case study is instructive not just for our refusal to surrender to Al-Qaeda and be chased out of Iraq. It is particularly instructive because the Sunni tribes only joined forces with us after doing exactly as Jonathan recommends, after negotiating with Al-Qaeda. Their reward was an unrelenting and indiscriminate campaign of terror against the local population, complete with suicide bombings, assassinations, and public beheadings. To cite just one example, during the spring of 2006, each morning in Baghdad, U.S. soldiers would find over 100 corpses in the streets, many with drill bits in their skulls or bearing other signs of torture. The Sunnis had bargained with Al-Qaeda, and they reaped the whirlwind. The second reason for my surprise at Jonathan's approach is that Al-Qaeda's probability of success in actually overthrowing any government is close to zero. Out of all the religious-based terrorist groups that have been ended since 1968, not one ended by achieving victory. Not one. Trying to overthrow multiple Middle Eastern regimes is, shall we say, rather ambitious. In reality, Al-Qaeda's revolutionary objectives are unachievable. What Al-Qaeda has done instead is to bring governments together from across North America, Europe, the Middle East, Africa, and Asia in an unprecedented effort to defeat it. All governments around the world now consider Al-Qaeda their enemy, and making a world of enemies is never a winning strategy. Thank you.
First of all, start by thanking both speakers who did the major work for that book sales this evening. First thing, I'm going to open it up to the audience in a moment, but I also, before I do that, want to offer both speakers a chance to respond to various things that the other one has said. So I think we'll finish with the last line of you, John.
I said at the beginning we wouldn't disagree, and actually if you dig down into what Rachel said, we aren't necessarily disagreeing quite as much as it may appear at first. Firstly, because I'm making a distinction between talking to, having a channel, and negotiating. Two different things in my view. We started a channel with actually before 73, 74, but that channel existed then on. If it hadn't existed, it would be very difficult for John Major to get into the peace process he very successfully did, which deserves a huge amount of credit. How to have some way of engaging these people so that when they reach the end of their tether, and they try every military means they can and it won't succeed, they need all that to find that. If you don't have that channel, they will find it very difficult to do so. They see no political prospects of getting their aims, they will carry on with their military campaign. So my argument is not we should negotiate with Al-Qaeda, we should open the channel, we should help to try and educate them away from the dark positions they have at the moment. When they come to a realistic sense, then might be the time for negotiation.